All right, Larry Krueger here with a 49er Tuesday update with all the news of the day that happened on this Tuesday, October the 14th. Let's get right into it. There were a bunch of notes today surrounding the 49ers, including the Niners working out veteran cornerback Tre Hawkins today. Now, Hawkins is an interesting player. He went to Old Dominion. He's 6'2", 188-pound corner, was drafted by the New York Giants in the 6th round of the 2023 draft. This guy's, he's got good size and good speed. He's got good size, good length. He ran 4.39 at his local pro day when he was coming out of Old Dominion. 49ers obviously looking for more bodies on the corner. You never can have enough good corners, that's for sure. And anytime you have injuries, anytime you have you got to make sure you got a full complement of corners standing by, because it's a passing league. It's a passing league, and you got to be able to defend the pass. So Tre Hawkins worked out for the Niners today. A couple other 49er notes. The Washington Commanders have signed Drake Jackson. How about that? Drake Jackson's back in the NFL. I guess we now know who was really banging the table for Drake Jackson. It was probably Adam Peters, because Peters signs the former 49er who, when Peters was with the Niners invested a second-round pick on Jackson. Jackson's had knee problems. Jackson's had injury problems across the board. He has problems putting on weight, but he's got an interesting skill set. He can rush the passer from outside or inside, and he's got some potential for sure. Great guy. Always enjoyed talking to Drake, and now he gets another opportunity to restart his NFL career with the Washington Commanders. So good move there for Drake Jackson. We'll see if it's a good move for the Commanders long term. Fred Warner had his surgery today, or was scheduled to have his surgery today. There were photos of Fred sitting in the hospital getting ready for surgery. We wish Fred nothing but luck and obviously success in coming back from this injury. His recovering timeline is around 3 months, according to some. Obviously they haven't even had the surgery, so we don't even know how he's going to come out of the surgery, what exactly was done, but he's obviously done for 2025. He's a 2026 ball player at this point. According to Matt Mayoka, the Niners do not plan on trading for a linebacker, nor do I think they should. Instead, they're going to go with Tatum Bethune at the Mike linebacker spot for the rest of 2025. Now, before you lose your mind and be like, Tatum Bethune sucks, and then have to take it back and delete the tweet in 3 weeks or whatever, let me just tell you, Tatum Bethune was a really productive linebacker at Florida State, 5'11", about 230 pounds. And he didn't have a great 40 time, ran in the 4.7s, 4.8s, not a good 40 time. He needed to get faster. He's got great instincts. He's really smart linebacker, great hitter, loves to hit, very physical, but he was a step and a half slow for a starting linebacker, and he knew it. So what did he do this whole offseason? He went and redid his body, lost a lot of weight, kind of, added some muscle, and picked up an extra step. Now, he probably had a step and a half to gain, and I think he definitely gained a step. We'll see exactly how fast he is. Don't judge Tatum Bethune off of the one motion touchdown where, it was a busted play. This is a young player who didn't take any of the practice reps during the week. I think you're going to see him as, the player that he's playing, the player that he plays like, I think Sunday night against the Falcons is going to be much more like the player that he actually is, because this is the player that he'll be after a week of practice when his head's totally in the game plan and he knows he's going to start. So I know people are saying trade for Demario Davis. No. Trading for a linebacker at this point doesn't make sense. Why? Because you have two good linebackers on your roster that you're not utilizing yet. Bethune is one, Nick Martin is the other, and then there's good practice squad linebackers. I did a perusal of every practice squad in the NFL today, and Chris Paul Jr., Chris Poo Paul, who played at Ole Miss, was a tackling machine there. Was drafted by the Rams, I believe, or signed by the Rams after the draft, then cut, signed by John Schneider. He's on Seattle's practice squad. He's a good young linebacker. I would sign him. Chandler Martin, who I had on the Krug show before the draft from Memphis. 6 feet, 230. He's on Baltimore's practice squad. Eric DeCosta is one of the sharpest judges of talent. And Chandler Martin's got a lot of talent. 6 feet, 230. He's a little on the undersized side, but he's a hell of a player. Was a great player at Memphis, and he's a terrific person. I would sign him. And if I didn't sign those two guys, how about Eugene Asante, who was on the Dolphins practice squad today, was picked up by Cleveland and put on their practice squad. This guy can hit. He can run. And to me, you say, well, Krug, what about these other guys they have? What about Luke Gifford? What about Jalen Graham? What about Curtis Robinson? I think special teams linebackers become kind of a luxury item when you don't know and have your scrimmage linebackers totally sewn up. If you have awesome scrimmage linebackers that you're never going to sub out, and it doesn't matter who backs them up, then yeah, you can have Curtis Robinson. Yeah, you can have Luke Gifford, guys who are designed to be special teamers. But if you're really in a mode of development, if you're really in more of a developmental roster, I would rather have Eugene Asante, Chris Paul, or Chandler Martin as a linebacker that potentially can play from scrimmage. You don't know what Fred's going to return like or when it's going to be. You better start looking at the future at linebacker. And you got a good young linebacker in-house for sure in Nick Martin. And I think Tatum Bethune's a pretty good one too. But I would definitely try to get Eugene Asante, Chris Paul, or Chandler Martin. Because what do you need a special teams linebacker for when that's kind of that to me seems like a luxury when you don't have your linebackers that you're going to play from scrimmage set in stone. So those are the three guys I really like. I mean, there's other guys. There's Jamin Davis. There's Curtis Jacobs. There's Kaiser White. There's a number of interesting guys around the league. Sione Takitaki, which is he's not just a great name. He's a pretty decent player. But those guys are a little bit older. I like Eugene Asante, Chris Paul, Chandler Martin. I think all three of those guys are really, really good young linebackers that are going to be in this league for the next 5 or 6 years and be really good. So I like those guys, and I'd go in that direction. But the Niners, they're not looking to make a trade, and I wouldn't either, because you got guys in-house and you got guys on practice squads, and you just don't need to make a trade for a linebacker. And they're going to try to go with Tatum Bethune. We'll see if he's fast enough to cover. We'll see what a week of practice does for his assignments and being assignment sound and in the right place at the right time. But don't sleep on Tatum Bethune, man. This guy only lacked a step of speed and then redid his body, and I think may have regained that step of speed. And let's see what he looks like. I'm eager to see what he looks like. I think Tatum Bethune is a decent player. A couple other Niner notes. Marquise Siegel has really struggled this year in pass coverage. I was looking at Lombardi's Twitter today, and I saw that that Siegel's allowed 22 receptions and 388 yards, the most of any safety in the NFL. So he's being picked on quite a bit. It happens to young safeties. He's got a lot of talent, but there's a ramp-up period, and he's going through that right now. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. Also, this 49er football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, Larry, easy to remember. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, a couple other 49er notes. The Niners will be wearing on Sunday Night Football their 1994 red throwback unis. This is probably my favorite uni. I mean, I love the all-white throwbacks. Those are clean. But this is, when the Niners won their last Super Bowl 29 over the Chargers in Miami in January of 1995, they were wearing the 94 red throwback unis that night. White pants, red jerseys, looks really, really sharp. I think the 94 red throwbacks are probably their best uni. So we'll see that on national TV Sunday night. The Niners, by the way, are the only team in the NFC West with a negative point differential. How about that? They're -3 on the season. Seahawks are plus 49. Rams are plus 30. Even the Cardinals are in the plus. The Cardinals are plus 3. So the 49ers lead the division, but they have the worst point differential of any of the 4 teams in the division. Niners worked out offensive tackle Andre Dillard, according to Tom Pelissaro. The Niners know what I know. They don't want to say it, but they know what I know, which is that they don't have a backup tackle that's worth anything. Austin Pleasance looked great, amazing. He looked awesome. He was like MVP of the OTAs. Then we got to training camp, and he reminded us why he's a journeyman on a bunch of teams, because he just got worked. Couldn't pass block, didn't stand up to power, didn't stand up to speed. He isn't a starting offensive tackle in the NFL. Luckily, the Niners haven't had to play their backup tackles because McKivitz and Williams have stayed healthy. But they know what I know, which is that Pleasance can't do it. And that Dillard, even though Dillard's not a whole lot better, he probably is a little bit better as a pass protector than Pleasance. And at this point, I want my best pass protector at tackle. Why? Because otherwise you're going to get your quarterbacks killed. You already have 2 hurt quarterbacks. You want to see Adrian Martinez? You want to start digging up 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th quarterbacks? If you can't pass protect, you're going to be hurting. And Dillard is not a good run blocker. He's like, that's his weakness. He's a good pass protector, good feet, can't run block. No power, doesn't move anybody. But it's a pass blocking position. And I'll take Andre Dillard 7 days a week over Austin Pleasance at this point, based on what I saw this summer from Pleasance. Pleasance just is not NFL. He's not NFL at tackle. Maybe he's a guard, but he's not an NFL tackle. If the season ended today, the 49ers are the 3 seed in the NFC playoffs. How about that? Tampa's the 1, Green Bay's the 2, the Niners would be the 3. Philly 4, Seattle 5, Detroit would be 6. So it would be Niners and Lions in the first round at Levi's. And then the Rams would be the 7 seed. So that's if the season ended today. And it doesn't. 49ers also re-signed Robert Beal Jr. to the practice squad. They also signed tackle Isaac Alarcon, who is their international pathway roster holder this year. In the past, it was Alfredo Gutierrez. Now it's Isaac Alarcon. Alarcon was suspended for 5 games. So now that 5-game suspension's over, and he is going to be their international designated player for 2025. Alarcon is a developmental offensive lineman, developmental offensive tackle. So the Niners re-signed Robert Beal Jr. They've already cut him a couple times, but they re-signed him. They're obviously somewhat intrigued by his skill set. Though he never really ever fulfills that potential. And then Alarcon is back on the practice squad. And then the Niners to create a spot cut Bruce Hector. So Bruce Hector is no longer a 49er. Also, a couple things to look at I thought were interesting stats from one for next week and one from last week. Tampa Bay, how about this in the second half? Second half of the game Sunday, Baker Mayfield does not have Chris Godwin, didn't have Emeka Egbuka, didn't have Mike Evans. None of those guys were there. What did he have? He had Tez Johnson, Cam Johnson, Sterling Shepard, and Cade Otton. And yet still, with no Godwin, no Egbuka, no Evans, no Bucky Irving, Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating in the second half. An average 15.4 yards per attempt in the second half. So he just dominated the Niners in the second half with his backups. The Niners got worked over by the B team. I mean, Baker and the B team basically worked the Niners over last weekend. And as far as a stat to look at in this game coming up, it's going to be a huge challenge for the 49ers. Atlanta's a top 2 team, both offensively and defensively, as far as yards per game. They're really good. They're an under-the-radar team. Now, don't don't sleep on them. They've lost 30-0 to Carolina, but that game just got out of hand. And then Raheem kept going for more, fourth down tries and kept going away from the field goal. So, I mean, they could have made that game closer if they kicked some field goals, but instead, Raheem Morris said, hey, you know what? Let's just go for it on fourth down. So, also Atlanta in that Carolina game was -2 in turnovers. And as I said, they went for it on fourth down like 3 or 4 times and didn't get it. So that game looked way worse than it was. But the Atlanta Falcons can rush the passer. Unbelievably, 2 years ago, they had no pass rush at all, but they've devoted so much of their draft capital to the defensive line. And now they can rush the passer. And they have 14 sacks. 14 sacks so far by 10 different players. So that's, 14 sacks in 6 games by 10 different players. So the Niners offensive line has their work cut out for them, for sure. For sure, they have their work cut out for them. It is going to be a huge challenge for the 49ers to block this Falcons defensive line. It's a really, really underrated defensive line for sure. One of the more underrated defensive lines in all of pro football. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks also to Habbas Law. We are brought to you by Habbas Law. Thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Visit them on the web at habbaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com. Great attorneys. They will fight to make it right at 1-800-INJURED. And thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.